The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
As violence continues in Israel, in Gaza, in the conflicted territories, we have children and families in fear all over the region. And I seem to be getting into arguments with both left and right wingers. The left wingers saying I'm too pro-Israel, the right wingers saying I'm too anti-Israel. And I don't think there's ever going to be agreement between me and either side of this argument. But I think we have to keep talking about it, and I have some more thoughts today. We have terrorist rockets fired with the intent to kill civilians in Israel coming by the hundreds and thousands. There are bombing runs by Israel meant to take out where the rockets are coming from, and Hamas and other terrorist leaders going astray and killing civilians and killing innocent children. This is absolutely horrible. We have Palestinian terrorists launching rockets from schools and other populated areas, knowing that when Israel retaliates, they will be able to use those deaths, those tragic deaths, those deaths that are absolutely disgraceful, to their PR advantage, to further recruiting and further hatred of Jews, which will, of course, further ingrain in the religious extremist elements on the Israeli side that they need to continue the bombing. This vicious cycle does not seem to be going in a direction where we will see a true change anytime soon. Now, as viewers of this program know, I condemn the mission of Hamas to destroy Israel. I condemn their total disregard for the lives of the children and families that they endanger among their own people to continue to launch the hundreds and thousands of rockets intended to kill civilians. But I'm also condemning the strategy of Israel, which is in part led by these religious extremist elements, which are a minority in Israel, of maintaining the status quo of retaliation that is clearly not working, that regardless of why it is that the rockets are being fired from areas where there are civilians and children, they are killing civilians and children, and that is simply not going to lead to any kind of broader solution. I'm heartbroken over the families from Gaza who have innocent children dying, who have innocent relatives dying. It is absolutely horrible. And I also, of course, condemn the rockets from Gaza, which are not resistance according to international law, as they are deliberately sent to try to kill Israeli civilians. I condemn the racism in Israel and the calls for vengeance and incitement that are too common in Israel. And by the way, among the extremist Israeli politicians as well. I condemn that. This really has to end. There will be no peace if Hamas continues in power, which, by the way, the survey we looked at last week showed most Palestinians don't want Hamas in power. If Hamas continues in power with their strategy, with their goal, ultimate goal of eliminating Israel, there will never be peace. At the same time, there will never be peace if Israel does not stop the settlements. Do not release prisoners that have been correctly convicted. Don't do that, but stop the settlements. And the extremist religious elements in Israel, in the Knesset, refuse to do that. And that also is not a winning strategy. Israel has to stop that, Lewis, and Israel has to remove the religious elements that are, unfortunately, because of the way the multi-party system works, influencing policy there.
Yeah, both sides, David, need to remove the religious elements. And I would say good luck with that. There are just too many factors at play here for this to end quickly or easily or peacefully. I mean, this has been going on for how long? Unfortunately, I think this is going to continue for quite a while. I don't see any end in sight, unfortunately, because of all these factors.
Now, what I've just said will still probably lead to some people calling me anti-Palestinian. What I'm about to say will definitely lead to many people calling me anti-Israeli. And my point is this. Even if you, like me, agree that Israel, like any other country, has a right to defend itself, as any country would if they were on the receiving end of hundreds or thousands of rockets as they are, even if you agree, as I do, that Hamas does bear significant blame for their position as a systemic impediment to peace, and that the Palestinian deaths are happening in part because of how the Hamas rockets are being launched towards Israel, to justify the continued policy with anywhere from 25 to 75% of the Palestinian deaths being innocent civilians and children, you have to believe that it's going to lead to something productive, that it is going to get you closer to peace. And we know that that's not the case. So how do you justify a policy that is pragmatically ineffective and is leading to the deaths of many innocent civilians and children, even if they do want to see Israel destroyed? How do you support that, Lewis?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask. Unfortunately, this is just a total quagmire, David, and there's no easy way out.
We've been saying for years what needs to change on the Palestinian side, but Israel's policy also needs to change. The religious extremists need to be out of power, and the settlements absolutely need to stop. And the rockets from Hamas and other groups in the territories absolutely need to stop. The policy of saying we won't stop until Israel does not exist, none of those ideas are going to get us any closer to any kind of peace agreement there, and we'll continue to follow it and see what happens. We'll see if President Obama's involvement as maybe a broker of ceasefire or peace has any impact. I don't know. Let's talk about the Hobby Lobby case. A Massachusetts Christian college that is now asking the government to allow it to discriminate against LGBT people based on the Hobby Lobby case is now facing the possible removal of accreditation by the local board. The Boston Business Journal reported over the weekend that Gordon College's attempt to circumvent federal anti-discrimination laws by claiming religious exemption has now earned the school a position on the New England Association of Schools and Colleges agenda at the next meeting. That organization will determine whether, in spite of the college, Gordon College, trying to circumvent the law and policy, the law based on the Hobby Lobby decision, whether they would still be in violation of the non-discrimination policy of the board and could be potentially subject to losing their accreditation. Gordon College President Michael Lindsay was among 15 Christian leaders who wrote a letter to the Obama administration where they said, based on the U.S. Supreme Court's Hobby Lobby ruling, they should be exempt from federal anti-LGBT discrimination laws, and thus they should be allowed to fire gay people simply because they are gay, and their sincerely held religious belief as a Christian organization is that homosexuality is wrong, and they don't want any LGBT individuals around. There are two issues here, right? One is, can they fire people for being gay based on state and federal law, and how does that connect with the Hobby Lobby ruling? And question number two is, does this just violate the accreditation guidelines of non-discrimination? These are two separate issues. But again, Lewis, once again, this is the fourth or fifth time we're seeing the Hobby Lobby case used to try to attempt to justify further religious opt-outs.
Yeah, it's not going to end either. This is fascinating. I mean, I think you called this one, David. It's spreading like wildfire. We're
seeing the slippery slope. Initially, this was about supposedly 4 types of contraception. That was expanded to apply to 20 types of contraception. We saw Guantanamo Bay detainees, through their attorneys, say, hey, based on Hobby Lobby, we, even as non-citizens here in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, should have more religious freedom and more religious, we should be able to have Qurans, and they had a number of demands based on the Hobby Lobby case. Now we have a Christian college that wants to fire people for being gay. We don't like to jump all over the slippery slope bandwagons, but we're seeing it here, and we will talk about it in more detail later today with constitutional law professor Adam Winkler. Moms with Guns, the founder of a pro-gun group called Moms with Guns, has taken her hatred of President Barack Obama to the next level by expressing her desire to see the president assassinated. Kathy Perkins, or as she was at one point known on Facebook, Kathy Perkins Armed Mom, wrote on Facebook, she commented on a photograph of President Obama attending a barbecue in Texas by saying, "Where is an assassin when you need one?" In the interest of precise reporting, assassin was misspelled in her comment. The comment was picked up by Shannon Watts from the Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, who tweeted a screenshot of the comment. Watts tagged the FBI in her tweet also sent the information to the U.S. Secret Service. The craziest part is that her comments, if you follow the comment thread on this picture, you also see Casey Hindman, who suggests he may know where to get in contact with a hitman. He's a member of the Moms with Guns Facebook page. You also see Kathy Bullock Lee, the woman who is amazed that President Obama hasn't already been assassinated. She's a member of I Support Open Carry in Texas. The Moms with Guns Demand Action Facebook page is mostly right-wing conspiracies, which is really no surprise at all. This also isn't the first time that Perkins has turned heads with her strange behavior. In January, there was a photo of her and her family standing with assault rifles over their shoulders at a Girl Scout troop meeting. That went viral. If I were living anywhere near Kathy Perkins, Lewis, I would be very scared, not because of all the things she wants us to be afraid of, but just because of Kathy Perkins.
Right. You never know when a stray bullet from a negligently fired weapon might come through your window and hit you in the dome. This is what I love about social media and the internet. It has just allowed us to really learn who are the nuts, and it puts them on display, David. They put themselves on display, so we all get to see it.
And I assume the Secret Service also gets to see it. I can only assume when someone who clearly has the mechanical means, the firearms, to commit a crime, and suggests also that it would be good if someone assassinated President Obama, we have to assume the Secret Service has looked into her.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, people put this stuff on Facebook every day, so yeah, it's probably pretty hard to parse through.
A Republican lawmaker who promoted legislation to teach abstinence-only sex education in schools announced that his own unmarried high school-age daughter is now pregnant. This is Bill Cassidy. He's a state senator from Louisiana. He released a statement announcing that he was to be a grandfather and expressing support for his daughter, saying this is a challenging time. He said, earlier this year, Laura and I learned that we will become grandparents this summer. Our children have been the greatest blessing of our lives, and we welcome our grandchild as a joyous addition to our family. Our daughter now faces a more challenging future than her peers. She has our unconditional love and support. Cassidy is widely known as an abstinence-only crusader. He co-sponsored the Abstinence-Only Reallocation Act, which would award grants and funding to public and private schools that choose to teach abstinence-only sex education, as opposed to what we know as real and effective sex education. And in spite of the fact that we know abstinence-only sex education does not work, Louisiana is one of the leading promoters of abstinence-only sex education and one of the leaders in teen pregnancy, the 6th highest teen pregnancy rate in the nation. States that prescribe abstinence-only sex education have significantly higher teen pregnancy rates, and of course, along with that come higher abortion rates, assuming that that is a state where the where the woman can find a legal and safe abortion. Will Bill Cassidy learn from this and look at the data and say, you know what? Abstinence-only sex education doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. It's not reasonable. And the science tells me, the data tells me that we should change it. Or will he just continue to pretend that it's an effective means of preventing pregnancy and abortion?
I don't think the information or the data is going to make a difference. I don't know if this is based on principle or ignorance, but I feel bad for the kids, David.
I feel very bad for the kids because you have so-called pro-family conservatives who refuse to see the empirical evidence that they would achieve their goal of reducing the number of abortions and teen pregnancies if only they change their view about abstinence-only sex education. I have very little confidence that we would see a turnaround from Bill Cassidy or people like him, although every once in a while it happens. We recently had a Republican, I think congressman or senator, who changed his mind after being presented with data about climate science. So it can happen.
It can happen, and usually their minds change when someone in their family is involved in whatever the controversial issue is. So hopefully we'll be optimistic here.
Let's take a break. Of course, join us on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Hate mail, behind-the-scenes pictures, discussion with other viewers. So much on our Facebook page, facebook.com/David Pakman Show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
You can support the David Pakman Show with the shopping you do on Amazon.com. Go to our website, davidpakman.com, and click on the Amazon banner on the right side of the page. Bookmark the link. Use it whenever you shop. No forms to fill out. You just do your Amazon shopping, and Amazon sends us a kickback, a great way to support the David Pakman Show. The David Pakman Show membership program is also made possible in part by liberalbias.com. If you're worried about bias, liberal bias in statistics, facts, and other science-y, reality-based things, liberalbias.com will show you how to unskew reality and make it easier to fit into the conservative worldview. Go to liberalbias.com to find out more. Today's new member of the day is Kasha Clare. Kasha Clare, thank you for being a David Pakman Show member. You can join Kasha and get all the great member benefits, including the bonus show with Friday alcohol recommendations from producer Lewis and sometimes from me when I have something to recommend. Go to davidpakman.com/membership. It is time for Hatriot Mail today.
Hatriot Mail, your break from the tyranny of unbiased, independent media. Because knowledge and information are just communist conspiracies. Hatriot Mail, written by patriots who hate David Pakman. Because America. And because freedom.
Absolutely. Today's Hatriot Mail, I'm calling it the Religious Freedom Edition. I don't want to explain that before you listen to this. So let's listen first and then I'll explain.
I watched your skit about good Pastor Hagee. It amazes me that you know nothing about. True Christians are watchful but not obsessed. Your job as Christ should be to share the message of Christ and what to expect at the end times. As a witness of Yeshua, my job is to share the good news of salvation. You might want to research a little better before making comments. Unless you have accepted God's gift, I would be careful about attacking His true believers. Plead the blood of Jesus, or you will spend eternity you know where. As for John Hagee, he has got rich off of his prediction books, and it would do him good to get on his knees and really get to know the God he has got rich off.
Yeah, I don't know about this get on your knees for Jesus type of thing, but my reaction to this is, where is my religious freedom, right? Why can't I have religious freedom to do whatever I want, to do a show without having to plead the blood of Jesus? Which, by the way, I still don't know what that means. It's one of my favorite phrases, to plead the blood of Jesus. I do not know what that means, but why can't I have the freedom not to have my program invaded by Christian proselytizers?
David, I feel like you're bullying Christian proselytizers. You might want to lay off. They're just doing their jobs, you know?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Okay. So anyway, thank you for that incredible message. And yeah, I would love to know how to plead the blood of Jesus. I don't know how. I would love to know. A woman has accidentally shot herself in the face trying to make a point. And she absolutely has made any number of points. And I'll tell you about them one by one. A 51-year-old Michigan woman earlier this week accidentally shot herself in the face after she slammed the butt of a shotgun on the floor of a Waterman, Michigan home, which caused it to discharge negligently, according to MLive.com. She was taken to a local hospital. She is expected to recover, according to MLive. The incident is under investigation. The woman told police, listen to what's going on in this country. The woman told police that during a family dispute, she took the gun out in order to make a point. And to her, I say, point made.
Yeah, I guess so, David. What's the point? That if her family members keep bothering her, she's going to kill herself? I don't know.
I don't know exactly what the point she was trying to make was, but she made, I know of at least 3 points that she made. Number one, too many dumb people in this country have guns. Okay, that's definitely a point that she made. Number two, people are disproportionately likely to hurt themselves or their family in their own home with guns that they own. And number three, having guns in the home can lead to dangerous and potentially life-ending escalations when there should just be a discussion with words with your family. So she made really good points. I just don't know that that was the point she was trying to make.
Yeah, the point I think she was probably trying to make was, if you mess with me, I'll shoot you. I guess, I don't know. Are we glad that things went horribly wrong for her?
No, definitely not. Of course, I'm disappointed that she had to get shot in the face to make 3 points that she didn't even intend to make.
I mean, I feel like if she did not accidentally shoot herself in the face, she would have learned nothing from this whole incident, and perhaps she still did learn nothing.
Yeah, it would be good to talk to her once she has recovered. Fortunately, she will. She will not die. Just incredible stuff. She was trying to make a point by taking a shotgun out and slamming the butt of it against the floor during a family conversation. Amazing. Bill O'Reilly is now telling poor people to save $25,000 and that they'll be able to do much better if they can just get that $25,000 saved. It's always funny to me when the least qualified people to give advice on something choose to give it. When it comes to the topic of money specifically and not being poor, multi-millionaire Bill O'Reilly has tips for people. Now, I want to be perfectly clear with you. I don't believe that just because you are now rich, you can't give good advice to people who are poor, right? It just so happens that when you're rich only because you have a really high salary and have already demonstrated that you have no idea what's going on with the poor. Remember, Bill O'Reilly saying, poor people have it really good in this country. They actually have, most of them have flat screen TVs and air conditioners. Bill O'Reilly clearly has no idea what the situation is with poor people in this country. So a couple days ago on the O'Reilly Factor, Bill O'Reilly lectures struggling Americans, giving them the following advice. Let's take a look.
It's tight everywhere. A recent Harris poll says 46% of Americans who are not retired say they live paycheck to paycheck. 46%. Now, every one of those people and their families are in grave danger. You should have at least $25,000 that you can access if you get fired or if a disaster hits you or your family. $25K. So, how do you do that? First of all, never waste money, ever. That trinket, you don't need it. Then, take a look at your life. See what your vices are. See what you overdo and cut back. Then, go to websites like Groupon, get discounts on stuff that you have to buy. Never pay full price. Also, every time you have loose change in your pocket, put it in a big jar. That'll add up fast. Pay your cable bill someday. But most important is what my father drummed into my head. Out of every dollar you make, save 10 cents. No excuses. If you do that, you'll build protection. Factor tip of the day. That is it.
Okay, so he suggests that they save $25,000 by not wasting money. Of course, many people don't waste money. Not buying trinkets. Many people don't buy trinkets. Cutting back on their vices. Many people don't have vices unless you consider eating 3 times a day of ice. Using Groupon to not pay full price. Yet not everyone has computers and the internet, or would having an expensive device on which you get on the internet be considered a vice by Bill O'Reilly. I wonder if someone said, oh yeah, I'm going to save money on Groupon with my smartphone. Bill O'Reilly would say, whoa, no. You're poor. You shouldn't have the smartphone to begin with. Maybe they should go to libraries to print Groupons. I don't know what he thinks they should do. Putting loose change in a jar, that's okay, I guess. That's not going to get you to $25,000. And save 10 cents per dollar. Even if poor people could save 10 cents from every dollar they make, if they make $18,000 and you save 10% of your gross, forget about the net, it's basically 14 years to save the $25,000 that Bill O'Reilly is so offhandedly suggesting that poor people should save. However, I agree with Bill O'Reilly on something. Conceptually speaking, and I say it a different way, your number one goal should be to get $1,000 saved, right? Your kind of emergency fund. If there is an immediate emergency, you haven't lost your job, but your car breaks and you need the car to get to your job. Or your computer breaks and you need your computer to make money. Whatever the case may be, getting the $1,000 saved has to be the number one priority. Absolutely all extraneous spending must end right away. And next, the goal should be to have a 6-month kind of security fund, right? Whatever your expenses are for 6 months, if you were able to make no money for 6 months, you would want to be sure that you wouldn't have to move out of your home. You'd be able to eat. Your family would be able to eat. I agree that that's really, really important, but Bill O'Reilly offhandedly suggesting that by saving change and using Groupon, poor people are going to sock away 25,000 bucks is absolutely ridiculous. And Bill O'Reilly may just be disconnected from that. He reportedly makes between $10-20 million a year.
Right, like you said, this is the same guy who said poor people have everything they need and that there are no homeless veterans and that, the list goes on. I think he is disconnected. It's as simple as that. I mean, of course, some of the advice he's giving is good. It's also common sense. But his numbers here are just off.
Here's another tip that maybe Bill O'Reilly would agree with. Save money by not tipping service workers who only make $263 an hour, because if they wanted more money, they would just get a job that pays more than $263 an hour. You don't owe them your tips. Save the money, Lewis.
Or just do what Mitt Romney suggested, and that is just ask your parents for money.
That's exactly right. Just start a business with money your parents give you. Hasn't Bill O'Reilly heard what Mitt Romney had to say about this? What is he talking about? Saving change. Just get the cash from your parents. All right, let's take a break. Next, we will talk about the Hobby Lobby decision and the slippery slope it has opened the door to with constitutional law professor Adam Winkler.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
I'm joined today by Adam Winkler. He is a professor of constitutional law at the UCLA Law School. He is also the author of Gunfight, the Battle Over the Right to Bear Arms in America. Adam, great as always to talk to you. We've been speaking quite a bit about the Hobby Lobby decision. And in this case, the court held, of course, premised on the idea that corporations are people under federal law, that they're entitled sometimes to exemptions, and if there is a so-called sincerely held religious belief, in this case when it comes to contraception coverage involving 4 types of contraception, that they would be able to, as people, opt out of the requirement to provide that. We've already seen somewhat of an expansion of this, going from the 4 types of contraception to 20 kinds of contraception. We see Guantanamo Bay detainees citing the decision as a reason for why they should have more religious freedom. And we also see a Christian school in Massachusetts arguing they should be able to fire gay people simply for being gay based on this case. Question number 1, slippery slopes. Does this case legally open up these slippery slopes, or is that somewhat of a false notion?
Well, I think we can already see that we're slipping down the slope with all of these claims for exemptions that you've already mentioned. You know, it was a very central issue in the Hobby Lobby case, where advocates and the justices themselves argued about whether this case would lead down a slippery slope by recognizing more and more exemptions, especially exemptions from businesses. Traditionally, the Supreme Court's been pretty hostile towards religious exemption claims, whether under the First Amendment or under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. But the Supreme Court may have sent lower courts a different signal this time around, telling them that, yes, you should be more open-minded to claims of religious exemptions. Certainly, we've already seen a wave of lawsuits claiming religious exemptions, and I expect we'll see more to come. This is definitely a slippery slope, at least as far as it looks today.
There's been a counter-argument, which I am quite swayed by, which is that this case has removed the religious freedom of the employees of Hobby Lobby, whose religious views may differ from those of those in charge, who actually have no problem with contraception and their freedom to choose for themselves whether they want to avail themselves of the covered contraception services or not. That freedom has been removed. I'm wondering, is that legally actionable potentially? Could those would they have standing to sue and say our religious freedom has been removed because of this decision?
Unfortunately not. They would not have any legally cognizable claim. The way that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act and the First Amendment applies is that you can have religious freedom claims against the government, but you can't have them against private parties. That's why, I don't know, my mother was able to force me to go to Hebrew school against my will, and I had constitutional or RFRA claim against her. Your cause of action for religious freedom is only against government entities, not private parties. So that's what makes Hobby Lobby such a worrisome decision, because it really empowers the religious beliefs of some, such as the owners of an enterprise or a craft store like Hobby Lobby, to impose those beliefs on their employees. Hobby Lobby has a claim for religious exemptions against the government and against Obamacare, but those individual employees could see their own religious beliefs and their own liberties infringed by their employers and have no cause of action to bring.
When you look at the current Supreme Court, do you feel that there is something specific about the makeup of the current Supreme Court that led to this decision? Or is this a decision that could have been reached by a variety of historical Supreme Courts? Right? I guess what I'm asking is this Supreme Court particularly open to the influence of religion in this way? Are they particularly conservative?
Well, this is a particularly conservative court. We know that. I mean, the empirical studies that have ranked the ideology of justices going back all the way to World War II finds that this is the most conservative court since World War II, with 3 of the 5 most conservative justices ever to sit on the Supreme Court. So we know we have a very conservative Supreme Court, and I think that makes them much more likely to accept religious freedom claims. There's also the concern that some have raised. It's hard to know whether it's the right concern or not, but the concern that some have raised that we notice that you have 5 Catholics in the majority, and that the minority consists of 3 women and 1 Jewish justice, and that maybe the women and the Jewish justice are a little bit more attuned to the impact of a ban on contraception by an employer, and a little bit more skeptical of religious freedom claims more generally. I don't know whether that's the explanation here. We see a lot of 5-4 splits in ideologically weighty issues, from campaign finance to abortion to affirmative action. That same 5-4 split has occurred here, and I think it's probably most attributable to the ideological position of the Supreme Court, which is a relatively conservative one.
Okay, hypothetically, is there a door that has been opened to go from contraception and being exempt or opting out of coverage there to abortion here? Because that is, I'm getting tons of emails saying with conservatives, when they're fighting contraception, fighting abortion is not far behind.
Well, I think that's absolutely the case. Now, granted, I don't think Hobby Lobby has a direct connection to abortion in that nothing in Obamacare requires employers to provide insurance that covers abortion. So you're not going to see the same exact kind of dispute. But we are going to see Hobby Lobby, I think, morph and transform and become much more powerful as a way for businesses and others to claim religious exemptions when they don't want to apply things like anti-discrimination laws that protect LGBT people. We might see it with regards to other religious beliefs that don't allow access to various kinds of vaccines or blood transfusions. What the Hobby Lobby decision does is really empower employers in a way that they've never been empowered before to impose their own religious views on their diverse group of employees, and thus it is very worrisome.
With regard to activism to try to counter this decision, are there any actions that can be taken outside of the Supreme Court issuing a new decision that may contradict this one, whether it's the House or Senate passing some kind of law, state law? Are there any ways that this decision could be negated?
Absolutely. This decision could be negated by a simple federal law passed by a majority of Congress in both the House and the Senate and signed by the President of the United States. Such a law might, for instance, say that the provisions of health insurance are not subject to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Remember, the court's decision was not a constitutional decision. It was not based on a reading of the Constitution. It was based on a reading of federal law. Congress remains free to change federal law at its will. However, of course, we should recognize that law is not going to pass Congress anytime soon. With the conservatives in control of the House, it's unlikely that any kind of Hobby Lobby reform bill would pass Congress. Of course, it's hard to imagine just about any bill passing through Congress these days, so that shouldn't be much of a surprise.
Yeah, not much is getting through, and certainly if the midterms lead to a more conservative House and Senate, it's even less likely it'll pass then. We've been speaking with Adam Winkler. He is professor of constitutional law at the UCLA School of Law. The book is Gunfight: The Battle Over the Right to Bear Arms in America. Adam, great as always to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
NASA has predicted that we will find other intelligent life within 20 years. NASA predicts that 100 million worlds in our own Milky Way galaxy may host alien life, and space program scientists are now estimating that we will find that life within 20 years. Speaking at NASA's Washington headquarters this week, the space agency outlined a plan to search for alien life using current telescope technology, and they announced the launch of the Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite in 2017. They estimate within 20 years that they will be able to locate alien life. Here's a quote from Matt Mountain, director of the Webb Telescope. Just imagine the moment when we find potential signatures of life. Imagine the moment when the world wakes up and the human race realizes that its long loneliness in time and space may be over. The possibility that we're no longer alone in the universe. What we didn't know 5 years ago is that perhaps 10 or 20% of our stars around us have Earth-sized planets in the habitable zone. It's within our grasp to pull off a discovery that will change the world forever. They describe their estimates as conservative, and they say that there are 100 million worlds within the Milky Way galaxy that could be able to sustain complex alien life forms. They estimate that estimate accounts for the 17 billion Earth-sized worlds that scientists believe to be orbiting the galaxy's 100 billion stars. My biggest curiosity around this, Lewis, is if and when it happens that we have this announcement that we have found intelligent alien life, what happens to everybody's everyday lives? What happens to individual political issues when you realize that what many people have assumed, although increasingly more and more believe that we just statistically speaking, we are bound to find some other intelligent life. What happens? Do all local political issues become moot? Do we finally stop talking and fighting over two guys getting married?
Well, let's see. In the Star Trek universe, after first contact is made, everything changes and the whole world starts working together in completely different ways just for the betterment of the people and for the advancement of space exploration.
Right.
But I think that is a fairy tale. I think we're too fundamentally stupid for that. And I think not much will change, to be honest.
I think even if we find a alien intelligent life, right-wingers will still be trying to push creationism in school. I think it won't change.
Yeah, is Gordon Klingenschmidt going to stop his shtick if we find intelligent alien life? No, of course not.
A Princeton professor who was designated by CNBC as an industry expert on the climate said this week that scientists are demonizing carbon dioxide the same way Jews were demonized under Hitler. And he says that the goal of this is to perpetuate a hoax around climate change and global warming. This is Professor William Happer, who said all climate models that show the Earth is warming are wrong, and he compared his fight against the scientific community to that of Galileo, insisting the Earth was round. It's funny how so many people that deny science claim they are just like Galileo. Let's look at a little bit of video from CNBC.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Professor, I have some issues with all of this, obviously, because you don't believe in climate change at all. You made a comment.
Just a minute. I believe in climate change.
Sir,
shut up.
Sir, I'm open to all ideas. You made a comment back in 2009 comparing climate change to the Holocaust. And my question is, are you suggesting when you made that comment that climatologists and climate scientists are the equivalent of Hitler and Nazis? I mean, that's what it seems like you were trying to say.
You know, I get called a denier, and anyone who objects to all of the hype gets called a denier. That's supposed to make me a Holocaust denier. You know, I'm getting tired of that. And the comment I made was the demonization of carbon dioxide is just like the demonization of the poor Jews under Hitler. Carbon dioxide is actually a benefit to the world, and so were the Jews.
How much money did you take from Exxon over the years in the aughts?
I haven't taken a dime from Exxon. I have not taken one dime from Exxon.
I just love it, Lewis, when people who deny science insist they're like Galileo. And what won't right-wingers equate to Hitler and killing Jews?
It's just the most I don't know, visceral and a comparison you can make. And I don't know. I don't know if people just do it for effect, but I don't know. It seems to be effective.
No, Lewis, carbon are people now, just like Jews. Carbon dioxide is, of course, not being forced to wear identifying labels. Carbon dioxide is not being sent to concentration camps to be tortured and killed. But maybe what he means is that poor, persecuted carbon is just as useful as the Jews, or maybe it's the Jews that were as useful as carbon. I'm honestly not sure what he's saying here, but I guess it's good for the Jews, or maybe it's good for carbon. I don't really know, but he's certainly making some kind of a comparison that to him seems relevant.
I really just hope people don't start trying to marry carbon dioxide, because that's not going to help anything. No,
that's going to be bad for everybody involved, no question about it. So there it is. Carbon is demonized, just like Jews under Hitler. What won't be equated to Hitler or the mistreatment of Jews? I don't really know. We're reaching the outer bounds at this point. We have a voicemail line. It is 219-2-DAVID-P. You can call anytime. Here's a voicemail we received.
You know, when we first got cars, you didn't have to have a driver's license. Then, as cars became more available and more people started driving these cars and they started getting faster, people started dying. So as a society, we got together and said, you have to have a driver's license. Now, we make you go even further. You have to have a driver's license, you have to insure your car, everything. Well, the same thing should be done with guns.
Yeah.
You should have to prove that you know how to operate the gun, you know how to handle it in a safe manner, and you should have to have insurance on it.
No question about it. And we hear time and time again comparisons between guns and cars. The comparisons are ridiculous at their face because the purpose of cars is completely different than the purpose of guns. But the one good point is, fine, let's regulate guns to the extent that we regulate cars. That actually does make a lot of sense. One more voicemail here. Take a listen.
Hi, David. This is Chris from Vermont, and I wanted to comment on the documentary Into the Abyss. I was just watching your show concerning that documentary, and this guy in Texas that did this mass killing. I, too, for a while went back and forth about the death penalty, especially in such egregious cases, such as the one in Texas. But what I finally came to an understanding in my mind was that the death penalty is the ultimate act of a fascist state, and I have to get on, no longer be on board with the death penalty. And I just wanted to make that comment. Thanks.
I think that you can stop short of, you don't even need to show that the death penalty is something that is the ultimate act of a fascist state to be opposed to it. Just look at all of the clearly empirically invalid ideas around the death penalty, that it is a deterrent to crime, that it is fiscally conservative. I mean, just every argument that I've heard for the death penalty has been proven wrong by actual data and facts. On today's bonus show, we will follow up on a Holocaust report. We will talk about time limits on bathroom visits, and also a TSA agent who had never heard of the District of Columbia, thought it was some kind of fake ID, and scientists have created lab-grown blood. What are the implications? The bonus show, hosted by producer Lewis. I'm the sidekick on the bonus show, one of many great member benefits. Go to davidpakman.com/membership to become a supporter of this show and get access to the bonus show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.